Okay, let's unpack this. You think you're the captain of your ship,
That's
right?
the default assumption, isn't it?
Exactly. You believe you chose to start this deep dive, to pick up that glass of water, to love that specific person. But here is the cold, shocking realization from neuroscientist David Eagleman.
And it is truly shocking when it first hits you.
You are just a tiny, newly arrived stowaway on a massive transatlantic liner. You're taking full credit for the journey without acknowledging the engine room, the crew, the massive machinery under your feet.
That's the core of Incognito. We're talking about that 3-pound organ in your skull, that pinkish mass, which is, without a doubt, the most complex material we've found in the universe.
The scale is just, it's hard to wrap your head around.
It really is. Hundreds of billions of cells. And we always talk about the neurons, but you have the glia, which are the support staff, the maintenance crew.
Holding the whole thing together.
And those cells are making connections, synapses, at a mind-boggling rate. To give you an idea, there are as many connections in a single cubic centimeter of your brain tissue as there are stars in the Milky Way.
So that's why 99% of it has to run incognito.
It has to.
Yeah.
And our mission today is to figure out what that 99% is doing, why it's doing it without us, and what happens when you try to hold the conscious self accountable for the actions of this incredible unconscious machine.
Which brings us right to the central and, unsettling lesson of the book. The conscious you, the I that feels like it's in charge, is the smallest bit of what's happening. Most of what you do, think, and feel is simply not under your conscious control.
And often, as we'll see, the I is the absolute last to know what the brain has already decided. We rely on what Eagleman calls the brain's zombie systems. Pure autopilot. These are hyper-efficient subconscious programs that handle routine tasks, and they have to because the bandwidth of your conscious mind is it's incredibly limited.
You see it all the time. Think about driving. You're maybe listening to music, looking around, and suddenly your foot is on the brake before you've even consciously registered. Oh, a car is backing out of that driveway.
That whole process, the recognition, the motor command, it happened completely outside of your awareness.
Or the cocktail party effect.
Yes, perfect example.
You're deep in a conversation, completely focused, but your brain is still filtering all the background noise.
It's landing.
And the second your name is spoken across the room, your head just snaps around. You weren't listening, but your brain was.
The speed difference required for this is really what blows the whole idea of conscious will apart.
The baseball paradox.
The baseball paradox. Okay, so you have a top-tier pitcher throwing a fastball at, say, 100 miles per hour.
Right.
That ball travels from the mound to the plate in about 400 milliseconds.
Okay, 400 milliseconds. Now, what's the problem with that?
The problem is that conscious awareness, the time it takes for sensory input to register as, I know this, is about half a second. 500 milliseconds.
But wait, the ball gets to the plate faster than the batter can be consciously aware of it.
Exactly. The batter is performing this incredible complex motor act, timing the swing, adjusting for the curveball within a window that is literally faster than conscious thought.
You duck from a branch before you're aware it's a threat.
Precisely. The unconscious decision has already been executed. And this isn't just a theory.
This is where Benjamin Libet's work comes in.
This is the classic experimental proof. He had asked subjects to just move their finger whenever they felt the urge. Simple, but he was monitoring their brain activity.
And what he found was, it's critical.
He found the brain activity, what's called the readiness potential, begins to rise over a full second before the person reports feeling the conscious urge to move.
A full second. So the brain has already decided, the engines are firing, and then a second later, the conscious mind pipes up and says, hey, I think I'll move my finger now.
The conscious mind isn't the CEO. It's the intern who shows up late and takes credit for the presentation.
And that leads perfectly to the book's central metaphor, which I think sums this up beautifully. The newspaper analogy. My conscious mind is like a small format newspaper. Think USA Today, not the New York Times.
Right. It's just the headlines.
It's just the headlines summarizing the vast, unbelievably complex activity of a giant city, which is the brain.
Your brain is buzzing 24/7. Millions of little groups are negotiating, analyzing data, making decisions. These deep political movements are happening constantly.
And by the time my conscious mind gets the mental headline, an intuition, a feeling, a thought, all the hard work has already been done. I'm the last one to hear the news.
And you don't read about the internal budget debates or the maintenance schedules. You can't. The whole system is built for speed and efficiency, and consciousness is well, it's energetically expensive.
It gets in the way.
It absolutely gets in the way. If you let it meddle in details, the whole operation grinds to a halt.
I know this from playing piano. The second I start consciously thinking, okay, where does my finger go next? I lose it. The whole piece falls apart.
Exactly. The skill has been burned into the circuitry. There's a great little trick for this. Try signing your name normally with one hand, and at the same time, try to sign it backwards with the other.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
It's almost impossible if you think about it. Conscious interference forces both hands into the same rhythm. The only way to do it is to just let go.
It's the brain's survival tactic.
Yeah.
Burn jobs into the circuitry. Automate everything.
Which saves energy. The studies with expert Tetris players showed that as they reached mastery, their brains consumed less energy than a novice.
The goal of expertise is not to think.
The goal is not to think. And these efficient programs are often driven by evolutionary pressures we have zero conscious access to.
Right. Our love of sugar and fatty foods, that's not a rational choice in the moment.
Not at all. It's the choice of a successful program from thousands of generations ago when calories were scarce and fat meant survival.
It's just incredible how these inaccessible programs still steer our most intimate behaviors. I'm thinking of that study where men were shown pictures of women.
The pupil dilation study.
Yes, and they consistently rated the women with dilated pupils as more attractive, but none of them consciously noticed the pupils were different.
Not a single one, but their brains did. The brain saw the input-dilated pupils correlate with sexual excitement, and that implicit program drove their explicit judgment of who was attractive. It completely bypassed their awareness.
Astonishing. Or implicit egotism. The idea that people are statistically more likely to marry someone whose first name starts with the same letter as their own.
A Joel marries a Jenny, and Alex marries an Amy.
It's just an unconscious pull toward what feels familiar, toward a reflection of the self.
Right. So if all of our behavior is being guided by these deep, automated, invisible programs, it leads to the next big idea.
That you are not a single thing.
You're not a single entity. As Walt Whitman wrote, I am large, I contain multitudes. The brain is a team of rivals.
But if we're a team of rivals, who's the referee? How does any coherent behavior emerge from that conflict?
Well, the conflict is actually necessary. A car can't be conflicted. It has one steering wheel. But a biological creature can be of 2 or 3 or 4 minds at once.
Like a lab rat stuck between the pull of food and the push of an electric shock.
Exactly. It oscillates. 2 neural systems are in a tug of war. And in us, this rivalry is often between 2 dominant systems.
The rational and the emotional.
You can simplify it that way. You have the rational calculating system, let's call it the accountant, in the lateral cortex. It does long-term planning.
And then you have the emotional system, deep in the limbic areas, which is more like the internal auditor. It's monitoring your internal state, telling you if things are good or bad.
And you need that. Emotions aren't irrational baggage. Without them, you'd be frozen with indecision, because every choice would seem equally valid.
You see this play out in moral dilemmas, like the trolley problem.
A perfect illustration. If you're asked to just tip a lever to switch a trolley, saving 5 people by sacrificing 1.
That's just a math problem. The accountant system kicks in.
But if you have to physically push a large man off a bridge to stop the trolley, your emotional system, the internal auditor, just screams no. Pushing engages motor planning, emotional networks. It overrides the simple math. It shows decisions are the result of these battles.
And this battle also happens across time. The now versus later reward.
The classic deal with the devil. If you're offered $100 now versus $110 next week, choosing the immediate reward lights up those impulsive emotional centers.
The brain's impulsive circuits just value the now so much more heavily.
Absolutely. And while all these battles are raging, the conscious mind is doing its job.
Cleaning up the mess.
Writing the official story. This is the interpreter.
The spin doctor. It sits in the left hemisphere in the language center, and its only job is to create a plausible story for actions it never even authorized.
And we see this so clearly in split brain patients.
Right. The right hemisphere, which doesn't have language, is given a simple command like walk. And the patient gets up and starts walking.
Then the researcher asks, why did you just get up?
And the interpreter in the left brain, having no idea why, just invents a reason. It says, I was thirsty, I'm going to get a drink of water.
It has to. It cannot tolerate a gap in the narrative. And our brains do this all the time, this drive toward patternicity, seeking patterns, seeking cause and effect, even where there's none.
So hidden programs drive the action, and the interpreter justifies it after the fact.
Which has profound implications for Well, for everything, for our ideas of blame, responsibility, the legal system.
This is where we move from the lab into society.
And the consequences are enormous. The simple fact that you cannot separate the actor from their biological hardware changes everything.
The case of Alex the pedophile is just. It's so clear. A man who suddenly develops these urges completely out of character.
And it turns out to be a tumor in his orbitofrontal cortex. The tumor is removed, the behavior vanishes. The tumor grows back, the behavior returns.
So where is the Alex in that equation?
Exactly. Or look at Parkinson's patients. A significant minority, when treated with dopamine-enhancing drugs, develop crippling compulsive gambling habits.
A tiny chemical change causes a massive, life-ruining behavioral shift.
So we operate with this fault line problem in our legal system. We draw an arbitrary line.
If we see obvious brain damage, like a big tumor, we grant leniency. That person is not blameworthy.
But the common criminal who might have a subtle biological difference in their frontal lobe that causes poor impulse control.
We say they're blameworthy, they just made a bad choice.
It makes no sense for culpability to be determined by the limits of our current technology. That fault line is constantly shifting.
So we need a new paradigm.
We do. The question shouldn't be the retrospective, is this person blameworthy? Which is basically impossible to answer. The question has to become, what do we do from here?
A forward-looking approach. And the proposal is to shift toward modifiability.
Modifiability, not retribution. If the behavior can be changed, you rehabilitate, you train. If the person is truly refractory to change, say due to massive frontal lobe damage, then the goal is simply incapacitation for society's safety, not pointless punishment.
And this leads to some really practical ideas, like the prefrontal workout.
Right, which leverages brain plasticity. It recognizes the team of rivals, and that for many criminals, the rivalry that's failing is between the long-term planner, the frontal circuits, and the immediate impulses.
So you give the frontal circuits practice.
You give them practice in squelching those short-term impulses. Using real-time feedback from brain imaging, a person can literally watch and learn to modulate the activity in those parts of their brain.
It's a tune-up, not a product recall.
Exactly. It's an ethical way to help level the playing field inside that neurodemocracy, to make sure the accountant and the auditor get a chance to speak before the impulse takes over.
Ultimately, then, this whole deep dive just reinforces that central theme.
The conscious mind is not driving the boat. It's the interface, shaped by evolution, by experience, by this vast emergent activity inside.
We've really experienced a second fall from the center. Copernicus kicked Earth out of the center of the cosmos.
And neuroscience has kicked the conscious mind from the center of the self.
But it's not a depressing thought.
Not at all. Even if you accept strict materialism, the sheer complexity of the brain, trillions of synaptic conversations running algorithms we can't even dream of, is, for all practical purposes, indistinguishable from magic.
Our inner cosmos is just as vast and outlandish as the one outside.
So as you go about your day, as you make your next cup of coffee or decide which email to answer, just pause for a second. Try to notice those subtle conflicts, the invisible influences steering your decisions.
You may be the stowaway, but that tiny vantage point is part of the most wondrous, complex, self-modifying engine we've ever discovered. And we are only just beginning to know ourselves.